Have you ever found yourself gazing at old Hollywood photographs and feeling swept away by the grandeur? The film premieres, spilling over with elegantly dressed celebrities, the hushed awe of theater audiences waiting for the curtains to rise, the glimmer of camera flashes capturing starlets in shimmering gowns. It's easy to get lost in that dream. Yet beneath those glamorous surfaces, many performers were fighting silent battles. Sometimes the heartbreak was caused by impossible societal expectations, or an industry more concerned with profit than human well-being. Other times it sprang from inner turmoil, personal tragedy, or struggles with mental health that received little support or understanding. Tonight, let's pull back the curtain on 20 deeply affecting stories. Stories of women who achieved artistic acclaim, financial success, or cultural significance, yet whose private sorrows became insurmountable. Their experiences vary widely. Some faced institutional racism and sexism, others endured punishing studio systems or personal heartbreak, and still others bore the weight of mental illnesses in an era that stigmatized anything perceived as a weakness. But each of these figures left a poignant mark on Hollywood, offering cautionary tales that echo well into the present. Their stories also highlight the fragile line between success and despair, reminding us that no measure of renown or glamour can guarantee emotional peace. If you've ever thought that fame might shield a person from unhappiness, prepare to reconsider. The sobering truth is that these 20 narratives capture all the complexity of the human condition. Creative genius coupled with deep anguish, joy coexisting with heartbreak, and a craving for connection colliding with an environment that seldom nurtured vulnerability. Though some of these names are instantly recognizable icons, others have drifted into relative obscurity, their tragedies overshadowed by Hollywood's relentless forward march. Regardless of their level of fame, their stories converge into a profound statement. Empathy and mental health awareness matter. If anything resonates as you listen, let it be that our shared humanity transcends the glitter of stardom. Because behind each carefully orchestrated publicity still is a person with hopes, fears, heartbreaks, and aspirations, just like the rest of us. Let us begin then with a countdown that moves from number 20 all the way to 1, shedding light on each woman's experience. Together we'll explore the paradox of fleeting celebrity and the haunting price paid when emotional support falls short. Number 20, Virginia Woolf, 1882-1941. Though Virginia Woolf is primarily heralded as a revolutionary writer, an innovator of the modernist literary movement, her influence has seeped into Hollywood through film portrayals such as The Hours. Her luminous intellect birthed classics like Mrs. Dalloway and To the Lighthouse, novels that delved deep into the inner worlds of their characters. Yet Woolf herself found no easy escape from her own psyche. She experienced repeated episodes of depression, mania, and psychosis, often retreating into rest and care on the advice of doctors who, at the time, had a limited understanding of mental illness. These struggles mounted over the years. By 1941, the weight of her condition became too heavy. Placing stones in her pockets, Woolf walked into the River Ouse, leaving behind a note that spoke of both intense love for her husband and the overwhelming darkness clouding her mind. In that final letter, she articulated her gratitude for the life they had shared and her sorrow at feeling that her mind had failed her. The tragedy of her end resonates through cinematic adaptations and retellings, reminding us that creativity and profound suffering often coexist. Indeed, film audiences who encounter Virginia Woolf's story see not just a revered literary figure, but a fragile human being calling out for compassion. Number 19, Marie Prost, 1896 to 1937. If we step back in time to the silent era, we stumble upon Marie Prost, once a promising figure in black and white shorts and early feature productions. She isn't widely remembered today, but during the silent film heyday, her delicate features and heartfelt performances brought her modest success. Then came the advent of talkies, and with the switch to sound, many silent-era actors found themselves unable to transition. Prost struggled with the new demands of vocal acting. Offers dried up, finances dwindled, and soon she was left to navigate life on the margins of an industry that had once embraced her. What followed was a descent into alcoholism and crushing despair. The final indignity. Neighbors found her lifeless after complaints about a barking dog. She had passed from malnutrition, living in squalor, an outcome the coroner labeled as accidental. But in the eyes of many, her death represented a tragic example of how Hollywood can abruptly discard its former darlings. Prost's name has since become a footnote in film history, yet her story foreshadows the cautionary tales of countless performers who soared on silent screens only to crash when the cinematic landscape shifted. Number 18. Peg and Twistle, 1908-1932. It's nearly impossible to discuss Hollywood tragedies without invoking Peg Entwistle, whose life ended in a gesture so laden with symbolism that it remains a fabled part of film lore. Originally hailing from Broadway, Entwistle brought a fresh optimism to Los Angeles, hoping that stage success would translate into big screen fame. She landed just one credited film role, an unsettling thriller called 13 Women. But rejection soon piled up. Overwhelmed by financial and emotional strain, she walked up to the iconic Hollywood sign and leapt from the letter H. Her suicide note, discovered the next day, expressed her despair about failing in her chosen profession. In a heart-wrenching twist, a letter offering her a promising new part arrived shortly after her death. Entwistle's story endures because it encapsulates the harsh truth. For every bright possibility in Hollywood, there can be an equally devastating heartbreak. The sign itself still stands, a beacon for aspiring artists worldwide, yet forever shadowed by this singular act of desperation. Number 17. LUPE VÉLEZ, 1908-1944. Nicknamed the Mexican Spitfire, Lupe Vélez burst onto screens with an energy and charisma rarely seen in early Hollywood. She starred in the Mexican Spitfire series and overcame industry biases to make her comedic talents known. However, behind Vélez's fiery persona lay complicated relationships, professional frustrations, and a personal crisis that became too large to bear. She reportedly became pregnant by an ex-lover unwilling to commit to marriage, at a time when unmarried pregnancy was harshly stigmatized. Desperate and isolated, Vélez took an overdose of sleeping pills. Her final act overshadowed by sensationalized accounts that twisted the details of her death into lurid gossip. Even so, her comedic flair paved the way for future Latina actresses, demonstrating that women from diverse backgrounds could captivate wide audiences. As the years passed, some looked back on her final decisions with empathy, recognizing that personal heartbreak and social pressure can collide in lethal ways. Number 16. Faith Bacon, 1910-1956. A luminous presence in the 1930s, Faith Bacon dazzled audiences with her daring dance routines, making a name for herself in burlesque shows and Broadway revues. She epitomized the exotic dancer, wearing lavish feathered ensembles or cleverly placed props to captivate spectators. Yet fame in these circles was fleeting, and the security net for performers who aged out of the industry was minimal to non-existent. Bacon struggled with chaotic relationships, and the weight of maintaining a glamorous veneer while battling her personal demons. At 45, she died after a fall from a hotel window, with police classifying her death as an apparent accident. Some believed it might have been something else, an intentional leap driven by despair. The tabloids speculated, but answers were elusive. Today, Faith Bacon's memory persists mainly in the form of faded photographs, capturing her at the height of her showgirl glory. That glittering persona, however, belies the real story. A woman left to navigate the harsh realities of an industry enthralled by novelty and novelty alone. Number 15, Frances Farmer, 1913 to 1770. Frances Farmer's trajectory reads like a clash between a fiercely independent spirit and a Hollywood system eager to crush nonconformity. Intelligent, outspoken, and unimpressed by standard starlet routines, Farmer was initially celebrated for her screen presence in films like Come and Get It. But when mental health issues emerged, manifested in erratic behavior and intense mood swings, she collided head-on with a studio environment ill-equipped to offer compassion. Farmer found herself institutionalized, subjected to electroshock therapy and rumored instances of abuse. She stood little chance of staging a triumphant comeback. Though Farmer did not die by suicide, her torment became a rallying cry for those who recognized how easily an unmanageable performer could be cast aside. Later adaptations of her life, like the film Frances, brought renewed attention to her ordeal, symbolizing how brilliance and mental vulnerability can become a spectacle rather than a call for help. Number 14, Carol Landis, 1919-1948. Carol Landis earned attention for her roles in upbeat films and for entertaining American troops during World War II. Nicknamed the Ping Girl, a promotional gimmick referencing her ping of energetic appeal, Landis carried a spark that many believed would propel her to sustained stardom. Yet behind the optimism lay heartbreak. She had an ongoing affair with Rex Harrison, who refused to end his marriage. When the relationship and her career prospects soured, she found herself sinking into despair. At 29, Landis died from an overdose of barbiturates, leaving farewell letters that highlighted her emotional devastation. The press pounced on the scandal, especially the involvement of the famous and still married Harrison. Over time, her passing became a grim testament to what can happen when a performer's emotional support system proves insufficient and the industry offers little more than fleeting applause. Number 13, Dorothy Dandridge, 1922-1965. Dorothy Dandridge shattered racial barriers, becoming the first African-American woman nominated for a Best Actress Academy Award for Carmen Jones. With a voice and presence that could enthrall even the most skeptical viewer, she was on the cusp of rewriting Hollywood norms until entrenched racism reared its head. Roles for black actresses were scarce and often insulting. Despite her accolades, Dandridge found few genuine opportunities to flourish. Her personal life also unraveled. A failed marriage, severe financial struggles, and heartbreaks layered on top of the industry's reluctance to cast her in meaningful roles. She died at 42 from an overdose under uncertain circumstances. Whether it was accidental or intentional remains contested. Her life now stands as a testament to resilience in the face of racial injustice, as well as a sobering illustration of how bigotry and inadequate support can cut short even the brightest potential. Number 12, Judy Garland, 1922 to 1969. Who hasn't heard of Judy Garland? She was Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, an icon whose voice soared through countless musicals, touching the hearts of generations. Yet from her earliest days at MGM, Garland was trapped in a punishing cycle. The studio controlled her weight with amphetamines, managed her rest with sleeping pills, and dictated nearly every aspect of her image. This relentless stress carved out a path of addiction that would plague her for life. Despite moments of brilliance, like her performance in A Star is Born, she was beset by financial woes and complicated relationships. By 47, she died of an overdose officially labeled accidental. Fans around the world mourned a star who, for all her radiant stage presence, had never found a place to rest from the demands of celebrity. In the aftermath, the conversation about child actors' welfare and the exploitative nature of some studio contracts began to grow louder, shaped in part by Garland's tragic downfall. Number 11, Barbara Bates, 1925-1969. Barbara Bates might best be remembered for her small but memorable part in All About Eve, where she portrayed Phoebe, a starstruck young woman ready to ascend into the limelight. The irony is palpable. In real life, Bates's star never rose as high as many hoped. She grappled with anxiety, depression, and a gnawing sense of failure once the offers dwindled. By 43, she ended her life via carbon monoxide poisoning, discovered in her garage. Friends recounted her deep-seated fears that she had no future in an industry that devours fresh faces and discards those no longer deemed marketable. In that sense, she personified the downward trajectory so many experience when the spotlight moves on, leaving them in a void. Number 10. Marilyn Monroe, 1926-1962. Marilyn Monroe's name is practically synonymous with Hollywood glamour. Her iconic platinum hair, white halter dress, and effervescent smile forming an image recognized worldwide. Her comedic timing in movies like Some Like It Hot and her public romances with Joe DiMaggio and Arthur Miller created an unmatched level of fascination. Yet beneath that shine lay deep fissures. She was racked by insecurity, haunted by a tumultuous childhood spent in foster care, and entangled in drug dependence that took hold as she coped with insomnia and anxiety. Monroe died from a barbiturate overdose at age 36, sparking countless conspiracy theories. Was it political intrigue, a mob connection, or simply a final, desperate act of a woman undone by heartbreak and exhaustion? While official records list it as a probable suicide, the debates have never ceased. What remains undeniable is that the fragile star symbolized the chasm between Hollywood's manufactured illusions and a performer's real emotional needs. Number 9. Capucine, 1928-1990. Capucine, born Germaine Lefebvre, brought a poised elegance to the screen in films like The Pink Panther, forging an image of refined sophistication. But as she aged and top-tier roles became scarce, she found herself battling depression and feelings of isolation. Living relatively reclusively in Switzerland, Capucine found the quiet did not soothe her internal turmoil. At 62, she jumped from her apartment balcony, effectively ending a life that had once seemed destined for unending success. People who knew her spoke of her kindness, her wry humor, and the sense that she never felt fully at home in the tumultuous world of show business. Her death forced fans and colleagues to confront the grim reality that an artist's external grace does not always reflect their inner fight for peace. Number 8, Inger Stevens, 1934-1970. Swedish-born Inger Stevens captured hearts in The Farmer's Daughter television series, where she played a down-to-earth woman employed by a widowed congressman. Off-screen, she navigated a series of failed relationships and wrestled with an unrelenting sense of loneliness. She continued to earn acclaim for roles in various TV and film projects, but the gap between her public success and private life widened. When she was found dead in her Los Angeles home of an apparent overdose, the coroner's probable suicide ruling left fans stunned. Many who had adored her comedic flair found themselves grappling with questions. How could someone so radiant be so tormented? Her story is repeated far too often in Hollywood. Up-and-coming talents who appear to have everything, but quietly feel they have nothing to hold on to. Number 7. Gia Scala, 1934 to 1972. Gia Scala's name may not be ubiquitous, but her appearance in The Guns of Navarone won her a measure of recognition. She endured professional ups and downs, with roles gradually tapering off. In the face of personal and career disappointments, Scala sank into alcohol and drug misuse. The official cause of her death was an accidental overdose, but rumors suggested despair at her stalled career may have played a part. In the swirl of Hollywood gossip, some interpret her end as the same old story. A bright star overshadowed by bigger names, cast aside once she was no longer profitable. Others believe she was a sensitive soul, whose vulnerability was heightened by an industry that expects perfection. In either case, her life underscores the precarious balance between fleeting triumph and the heartbreak that can follow once the applause fades. Number 6. Jean SEBERG, 1938-1979. Jean SEBERG became an emblem of the French New Wave, mesmerizing audiences in Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless. Combining American roots with European cinematic flair, she glided through a series of sophisticated intellectual roles, but her outspoken political engagement, particularly her support of the Black Panther Party, placed her under the FBI's COINTELPRO surveillance. Malicious rumors circulated in tabloids, fueling personal crises, including the stillbirth of her child, which some attribute to the immense stress. By 1979, SEBERG's emotional distress became unmanageable. She was discovered in her car, dead from an overdose of barbiturates, with a note hinting at deep despair. Her death remains a symbol not only of a psychologically fragile star undone by constant harassment, but also of a darker chapter in American history where political beliefs could spur relentless persecution. Her legacy underscores the high price that activism can demand from a performer's psyche. Number 5. Romy Schneider, 1938 to 1982. Romy Schneider was adored across Europe, initially capturing hearts in the Sissy trilogy before transitioning to roles that revealed her dramatic versatility. Yet her personal world was shattered when her teenage son died in an accident, an event that plunged her into profound grief. Films like L'important c'est d'aimer showed her continuing brilliance, but the pain lingered. At 43, she was found dead in her Paris apartment. Though officially attributed to heart failure, many suspected her sorrow had sapped her will to live. Fans still cherish her performances, and some revere her as a cinematic icon. But behind that admiration lies a sorrowful acknowledgement that immense talent offers no armor against life's cruelties, especially when heartbreak strikes at the family core. Number 4. Margot Hemingway, 1954 to 1996. Margot Hemingway, granddaughter of literary titan Ernest Hemingway, seemed destined for the limelight. She found success in modeling, gracing magazine covers, and forging her way into film. Yet parallels to her grandfather's melancholic legacy and her family's tragic history of mental illness haunted her. She wrestled with depression and addiction, drifting through short-lived comebacks that never quite stuck. In 1996, at age 41, Margot was discovered dead from an overdose. The coroner deemed it a suicide, marking yet another Hemingway loss to self-inflicted tragedy. Her story laid bare the lingering power of generational trauma, that invisible chain linking her to a family narrative where brilliance and despair seemed inevitably entwined. Even in fame, she couldn't outrun the weight of that legacy. Number 3. Dana Plato, 1964 to 1999. Dana Plato's end underscored the perils of child stardom. She rose quickly to prominence in different strokes, radiating innocence and comedic timing. But as the show wound down, she struggled to build a stable adult career. Financial instability and repeated run-ins with the law for substance abuse and petty crimes painted a grim picture of a performer left adrift without guidance. At 34, she overdosed on painkillers, an act ruled a suicide. Her story attracted widespread attention, illustrating how young actors can become entangled in the illusions that early fame provides, only to be dropped when a new generation of child stars emerges. In the aftermath, her name became a shorthand for the child star curse, a cautionary note that early success can evaporate, leaving behind emotional devastation if not balanced with grounded support systems. Number 2. YUKO Takeuchi, 1980 to 2020. As we leap closer to our modern era, the tragic story of Yuko Takeuchi reminds us that these struggles stretch well beyond the Hollywood hills and across cultural boundaries. A renowned Japanese actress best known internationally for roles like Miss Sherlock, she embodied elegance, poise, and a formidable acting range that garnered fans worldwide. Her apparent suicide at age 40 rattled not only her homeland, but also global audiences who had grown to love her. Amid speculation about postpartum stress and the demanding schedule of a prolific star, her death cast a spotlight on mental health in Japan, particularly among celebrities expected to maintain impeccable public images. The outpouring of sorrow in the wake of her passing underscored how universal these tragedies are. No matter the language or production style, the reality for performers in the public eye can be dizzying, lonely, and mercilessly demanding. Number 1. Misty UPHAM, 1982 to 2014. Misty UPHAM rounds out our list as an actress whose potential shone in critically acclaimed films such as Frozen River in August, Osage County. An indigenous actress, she confronted not only the typical roller coaster of auditioning and role scarcity, but also systemic biases that amplify the challenges faced by Native performers. UPHAM juggled financial hardships, mental health issues, and a sense that her plea for help often went unheard. In 2014, she went missing, prompting her family to beg law enforcement to intensify search efforts they claim were not taken seriously. Eventually, her body was discovered at the bottom of a ravine. The debate surrounding her cause of death has never been fully resolved, but heartbreak reverberated in the aftermath as many pointed to the obstacles indigenous actors face in an industry still not attuned to their unique struggles. UPHAM's death remains a stark testament to how easy it is for vulnerable performers, especially those from marginalized backgrounds, to be overlooked until it's too late. So there you have it, a countdown of 20 lives woven into the tapestry of Hollywood's lore, some legendary, others lesser known, yet each carrying the echo of painful endings that might have been prevented. Some stories are weighed down by prejudice, others by exploitative contract systems, and still others by personal tragedies that no friend or colleague seemed equipped to untangle. While it's disconcerting to examine these sorrows, in retelling their narratives, we pay homage not just to the pain, but also to the dreams and brilliance each woman brought to her craft. In the end, these stories serve as a reminder that brilliance can coexist with deep pain, that success can mask unimaginable torment, and that a warm smile on camera may hide a storm inside. May we learn to look past the glittering lights and paparazzi flashes, so that we never lose sight of the fragile human truths behind Hollywood's grand illusions. Together, let's make empathy our most enduring legacy.